This is a special time of the year. We said it at the beginning of the episode that you guys are listening to now, joined by enemies, unfortunately, in this circumstance. The We the Thunder podcast, at We the Thunder on Twitter. Thomas, Stache, and Shooter. The boys are rocking with me. Niko couldn't make it. He's traveling to Orlando, so he's going to be fairly close to the game and the action going on. Glad you guys are able to jump on and tell you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves in whatever order you want and tell us a little bit about the show and what we can expect for our little powwow today.
All right, so you have 3 of 3 hosts from the We the Thunder podcast, a podcast that started in 2020 during COVID, or I guess we started a week before COVID, and our team has not lost a playoff series since. So what we do is a weekly podcast, and then in the postseason, we transition to post-game shows, or sometimes, like our last show, post-game parties. We started back in 2020. Every time we win a playoff series, we do a toast to the team, which might have led to, I want to read this review that none of my co-hosts have seen yet. From Twitter, 6:41 a.m. this morning. From @HamOnTheBone21 says, I eat up every Bolts podcast I can, but that was impossible to listen to. You can't get drunk and ramble and expect people to enjoy it. It's a podcast, not a bar. So I don't know if I feel bad about this or if I feel really good about this, because the idea of our podcast starting was
it's a bar,
being at a sports bar, talking with your friends. So if that's what we got for this guy, it might not be for everyone, but mission accomplished, because that's pretty much what we set out to do. But I'll let the other guys introduce themselves and tell what the Lightning mean to them.
Well, Stache here. Me and Shooter started the whole kind of the Shooter and Stache brand years and years ago. Bounced around, did a few podcasts here and there, and then, like he said, 2020 season, we kind of got our legs going. Technology caught up to where we could actually do a video stream, because that's what we always wanted to do. We didn't want to just do an audio podcast. We always wanted to do like kind of a live show that we could interact with the fans. And that's really what our show is. If you come and watch our show, we go live, we broadcast live. There's people in the chat. We chat with them. We give away a bunch of free stuff, swag all the time. So technology caught up. We started doing the show. COVID hit a pause. And then suddenly no one could get together for hockey anymore. We couldn't go to games. So the next best thing was getting together on the podcast and people being able to interact live and talk about hockey at least once a week. And then he said we started going live during the postseason, and we took off from there. And ever since then, we've just become this huge community of people that are fans. We get together, we talk Lightning, we commiserate sometimes. Usually we celebrate.
You guys have been pretty lucky.
It's been Well, I mean, it's not come without a share of heartbreak over the last, 20 years, True. So, we'll get into these guys will tell you, I love telling my hockey origin story, because a lot of it actually has to do with the Avalanche. My family's from New Mexico, Colorado, San Luis Valley. We homesteaded out there generations ago. So I have roots out there, but I've been in Tampa for 22 years, and I moved here 2 years in 2002, right before we won the Cup in 2004, right on the heels of the Avalanche's last Cup.
Yep.
And that's whatever. I kind of moved here, slept out in front of the Lightning's arena for tickets, me and Shooter, for $9 tickets for the entire playoff run. We win the Stanley Cup. And then after that, the lockout happens, and our franchise is a shambles for a full decade. Just terrible hockey. And now since 2011, 2012, we've kind of had a resurgence. We've been a competitive team, and we've been getting close. And the last couple of seasons, we finally broke through. And that's what I'm excited about, because you guys have a very similar team. I know the metrics look a little bit different. Like, you guys are a much more talented team on paper. But really, I think when it comes down to it, you put the two teams on ice, they're very, very evenly matched.
He's just asking how you started, Stache.
Yeah. So, no, I'm just saying, that's why he asked what's about the Lightning, and that's why I'm excited about this franchise and their history with the Avalanche, and that this has been coming down the pike, right? For the last 3 or 4 years, we've expected this matchup, right?
I was expecting it last season. This was both Niko and I's pick preseason was the West was going to be the Avalanches to lose, and nobody was going to be, when it came to the playoffs at that point, nobody was going to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, and it still continues to be true. Artemi Panarin, I don't know who I was messaging on the account. I said Artemi Panarin created his own monster, and now that's come full circle, and it's still really, really scary to fathom. I do agree, we're in similar situations. Tom, let you go and introduce yourself, and we'll get things rolling here.
Professor.
I'm Thomas. I started a Facebook group about 8 years ago called Thunderbolts. It's one of the largest, most news-oriented Lightning fan page out there.
It's amazing. If you don't mind, Thomas, there's never any bad takes in this group, which if you're on Facebook, that's actually a miracle. That's a miracle. They never have any bad takes on Thunderbolts.
The moderators are really good in that group.
Admins.
But we have also for charity, we have donated the most money to local charities in the Tampa Bay area, including Seats for Service. We've been number one for the last 5 years and collected money for that. Every off season, we do a picnic where we pick a local, usually a player's charity or some kind of local charity to raise funds for, where we auction off Lightning swag and other items to collect money and donate to that. And then 2020, Shooter messaged me and said, "Hey, do you know anybody that would like to join our podcast?" And I said, "If it's just talk about Lightning hockey, I can do it." And did it once, and 5 minutes into it, it felt like I was just sitting here talking hockey with two guys. And then 2020, I lost my mom to cancer during the playoff run while we were in the middle of doing this. And these guys and the fans of the podcast were like huge for it. That's me for her there. And ever since then, we've been doing this every week.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I'm glad you guys are on. Follow these guys, listen to their show, stream it live when you can. Nico and I will be going on after game one of the Stanley Cup Final Series. So we'll be invading. We'll be able to take your bullets live. I'm sure I'm getting ganged up on my own show here. So the gloves are gonna start coming off. We're gonna hit the ice soon. But no, I'm very glad you guys agreed to come on, because our fan base, I'm not sure, we're definitely much more of a football demographic. Denver is a football city. It's Broncos first, even though the Avalanche are the first pro sports championship, and it's beloved here. I think we still hold the record, or might be pushing for the record, of longest consecutive sellout streak. It was like 487 games from 96 to 02, I want to say. But we don't know a lot of hockey outside of our own market. In the last few years, we don't even really know hockey inside of our own market, because the Cronkies refuse to let us watch our team on TV. So you guys are here to kind of let our fans know what the Tampa Bay Lightning are all about, and why a lot of you, I have the tweet pulled up in front of me. Thomas said Bolton 5. Stache has Bolton 5. Shooter picked Bolton 7. A little unrealistic, I would say, but I guess you guys will have your own reasonings behind that. But I guess we'll not start. Let's not start there. Starting at the very first series, you guys got pushed to 7 games. What happened? Was it just the Toronto curse, or what was going on there? What were the flaws in that first series? Because there were obviously some flaws. Whoever wants to take it first.
I think the biggest thing right there was this. So when we in this market, one of the things that we've seen is how much hockey this team has played over the last few years. And I know a lot of the people, especially in other markets, are coming in right away with asterisks over the last couple seasons, the COVID Cup and the Realignment Cup and all that. But when you really look at the industry itself, or the sport itself, no one inside the sport is putting asterisks. Like, everyone that plays the game saying those are some of the hardest cups probably ever to win. So you got to take that into account a little bit. And they were a very banged up team in the end of the end of the regular season, coming into the postseason. And to be honest, I really just say that Toronto started that season, or that series, much hungrier, with much more to prove than the Lightning did. And to be honest, our show's been kind of a grind, because when you go in the postseason, after every single show, you are 3 shows a week, 4 shows a week. You're not stopping. We have made it all the way to the end, the last 2 seasons. So even coming in the postseason, we were talking about on our show, do we really want them to go on a deep run? Like, we're tired, right? Imagine the players being tired. You know what I mean? And I think that they just kind of had this mentality of, are we sure we want to do it again? You know what I mean? And then as soon as they got engaged and they were like, you know what? Yeah, we want to fucking do this again. Let's do it. I think that's when you started seeing them turn it around, play better team hockey overall, and they started imposing their will and their system. And then that's when you saw towards the end of that series, it was fairly dominant hockey on the Lightning side of the ice.
Yeah, and for me, it was, you had when we saw the exit interviews coming out of Montreal, they talked about how they were so tired from the playoffs last year. So the Lightning is the only team that's played more hockey than Montreal had, and the only player that is still playing as much hockey is Corey Perry, who couldn't beat us, now joined us. So literally the last 2 seasons, we've had those short seasons. And going into it, Montreal's like, we're so tired. Imagine what the Lightning were. And then including, we got rid of our whole third line. And then come the trade deadline, we get Hagel, we get Paul, who they didn't know where they were going to fit in this playoff scenario. And so I think those first couple of days, it was Hagel's, it was Paul's first ever playoff experience. So it was them trying to get accustomed to this, trying to figure out what we were going to do, try to figure out where they belong, what, in a way, Toronto was the favorite. Toronto was a higher seed than us. We're starting in Toronto. A lot of those guys are Canadian from Toronto. There's a huge storyline there with Stamkos, Tavares, and that whole thing. And so I think the bright lights got to them for the first couple of games, and then they settled in and said, you know what, let's play Lightning playoff hockey. And once they played Lightning playoff hockey, they still have not stopped. And now we're in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Is it that much different? I mean, because I know the regular season's matchups between the Avalanche and the Lightning were razor thin. I rewatched both of the highlights today, and there's literally both sides had moments where you're like, this game is over, and all of a sudden the other team swings back. Is there that much of a difference from the way the Tampa Bay Lightning play in the regular season to the postseason? Well, I mean, what is that difference?
2019, 2020, it was 5-something bolts. These 2-1 games are going to be all bolts. If they can get these low-scoring games, that's bolts playoff hockey. Bolts regular season hockey is score 4, score 5. Just get it in the net. When they get to playoff hockey, it's defense. It's Vasi. Vasi's on a whole new level, and it's surround that net, stop pucks from being the net. You see the games that we've lost to Toronto, the games that we've lost to the Rangers. It's been 4-goal games, 5-goal games. You get those low-scoring games, and that's going to be an advantage. Tampa, especially because Colorado's got that high-scoring offense and the high-scoring defense of the blue line.
Yeah, and our coach kind of says it the best way, I think. He kind of shifts from, it's not about how many you put in, it's about how many you keep out in the playoffs.
Yep.
And that's something that, and I know you've seen it on Twitter, is why Lightning fans are confident going into this series, because we actually watched the Western Conference, not finals, but I guess we did watch the Western Conference finals, but we watched all the other series too.
Yep.
And we see a lack of goaltending and defense.
Yeah. After the first series, it got way out of hand.
Yeah. And I think, and that's what I had on the board. It reset on me, but how are you going to beat the Lightning? Because if you want to play that high scoring, first 1 to 10 wins, they know how to play that game. They also know how to play these 1-0, 2-0, 2-1 type of goaltender kind of duels. Mm-hmm. And going into this matchup, our secret weapon, or I guess it's not a secret anymore, our X factor, I guess you should say, is Andrei Vasilevsky. That's the key to the entire series. If Colorado wants to win this, that's the puzzle that they're going to have to solve. New York did for 2 days, 2 games.
And the one thing I would have to say to Avalanche fans and a lot of people out there, that from the analysis that I've seen, that the Lightning don't get enough credit for their ability to play high-paced hockey. They can go and play a track meet style hockey if that's what they have to do. They're comfortable playing it. Is that what they want to do? Is that their recipe that you've been hearing that word come out of Tampa Bay a lot lately? The recipe, that's the moniker this season. No, that's not their recipe. They couldn't have been more comfortable in game 6 when it was 0-0 going into the first period, going into the second period tied at 0. They score a goal, 1-0. So comfortable. They come back and tie that game on a power play, which again, it's a bad play by Steven Stamkos. That's a terrible penalty to take from your captain, a guy that's been putting his balls on the line this entire playoff run, goes and talks about discipline, goes and makes a stupid penalty. They score the equalizer, and then they come right back out and boom, they put it in the net, and then boom, it's shut down hockey. I mean, the Rangers didn't have anything after that.
Not only do they put it in the net, it's Steven Stamkos who got the penalty, right. Exactly. Who came back and scored it and was like, I'll right the wrong for me taking that stupid penalty.
So I would say if that's like the biggest difference right now between these two teams, because I think that if you really look at the way each team is capable of playing, because I think the Avalanche don't get enough credit for their ability to defend, and I think that they can play tight hockey and still feel comfortable. Now the question is, how long can they play tight hockey and feel comfortable before they start getting anxious, making mistakes? Because that's the big difference. Your question really goes back to is that big of a difference between regular season and playoff hockey for the Lightning? And yes, it absolutely is, because as Rob said, Shooter says, it's keeping them out, not getting them in, and being willing to trust that process and not lose your patience. Patience is what makes the Lightning team so hard to play against in the postseason.
And so much experience. There's so much experience.
There's the reasons why you guys are confident. I no shame about it. You guys have every right to be confident. I find it funny that there are fans that say that there's been disrespect and that people aren't aware of how great the team is. The people that know, and the people that see you guys here again, it's no secret as to why you're here. You play the system. It's a perfect system now because there's guys at the top that have played in it for so long. It just trickles down, and you got third line guys that come in every single season and play at a high level. And I've been a big proponent. I think I told you guys, after the Avalanche have been like more disappointing than the homecoming queen after prom night and everything like that for the past 3 years, we became Tampa Bay Lightning fans because we didn't want whoever beat the Avalanche to go on and win the Stanley Cup. So I was diving deep. I was trying to learn what these guys do. And it's the cliche. They don't like to win. They hate to lose. And when this team loses, that was the whole thing about the Toronto series, was that Toronto would won game 1, and then they came out in game 2 and thought, oh, Tampa Bay's going to roll over. Are you kidding? Like, Tampa Bay hasn't rolled over since Columbus. That was the last time that team has ever looked like they rolled over, quote unquote, in the playoffs. So this team has all of those things going for them. And the problem with the Avalanche is that, like I said, they've been disappointing up until this point. And for there to be the same kind of confidence in the Avalanche as there is in the Tampa Bay Lightning, we're going to have to go out and beat you guys. That's the only way that we're going to prove ourselves as true Stanley Cup contenders. It's been cute the last few years. McKinnon, Rantanen, Burakovsky for a little bit of time there, and now Cale Makar. It's cute. We got a lot of great names to throw out there. But no, it's definitely time to put up or shut up. And I fully admit to that. And I think the team is aware of that as well. I don't know. You guys probably didn't pay as much attention to the picture after the Avalanche won the Western Conference Finals. There was, other than a few guys on the end that are the happy-go-lucky guys in the locker room, Nathan McKinnon looked like he was ready to murder somebody on the other side of the ice still. And he just won the biggest game of his career. This team doesn't think that anything is over. And I'm guaranteeing you, I think that Jared Bednar's maybe 1A, not 1A, but 2 or 2A behind John Cooper in head coaches in the NHL. They've had similar career trajectories. I think this team is actually the most prepared for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I still don't know if that's going to be quite enough. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm fully confident. I'm confident because it's my team, but there is a lot that's going against them for this entire series.
So I have a question for you. Like, Colorado, have they really been tested? I mean, we talked about it in our podcast, the first series, no sorrows. Could have been a little bit different. I think Colorado still wins, but I don't think the sweep against Nashville Stars is in the net. Second series. Yeah, second series. I think we agreed one of the best teams that was in the West, St. Louis. Bennington goes down. You guys win that series. Would you guys? That would have been probably a 7-game series, possibly St. Louis winning that series from our side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go into Oilers, who it was the first one to score a touchdown on the extra point against a goalie like Mike Smith, who played for us at one time, years and years ago. For Tampa Bay Lightning fans, you remind us, because we only see you twice a year, you remind us a lot of the Florida Panthers, who we faced in the second round. Score a lot, not big defense. Your defense scores a lot. Your goalie, they have Bobrovsky. You guys, we don't know if they're going with Kepter, if they're going with Francois.
Kemper.
Right. I'm sure it'd be Kemper if he's good.
I'm almost 100. They said he's 100% healthy. Yeah. That was the answer from everybody in the organization.
I compare him, and I think he's similar to Bobrovsky, honestly. And his skill and his ability to carry a team, not necessarily to steal a game, though, is the thing. I don't think he's ever really going to steal a game for you.
Yeah.
He's
definitely got his flaws.
I don't know. Again, on paper, right? On paper, like any goalie, I think any goalie in the NHL, once you get to this point of the playoffs, is good enough to get hot, right? Mm-hmm. And then maybe the other team doesn't quite have the puck luck, and then boom, the goalie could steal a game out that way. But you're not expecting, per se, Kemper to come in, or either one of you guys goalies to really come in and steal a game in this series, where you're looking at a Vasilevsky and you're like, man, if he doesn't steal 2 games in this series, then he's not on his game, kind of,
Yeah, and watch out.
And my thing is,
go ahead. It's that elimination game that is always going to be one of them that he's just lights out. Mm-hmm. So it's a totally
different situation than the Avalanche have been in any of their previous Stanley Cup finals, because we had Patrick Waugh. We had the X factor in our own net, and we weren't counting on our goaltender to be the Van Beesbrocks or the Eddie Balfours, the guys that play outside of themselves. I've seen Kemper did it a little bit did it as much as he could to us in the bubble when he was with Arizona. Kemper stole 2 games against us in that series, and I won't put that past him, but especially early on, it doesn't look like he's comfortable. Like, the style that he likes to play is where he's getting peppered in front of behind a terrible defense. And when he's peppered and he's staying engaged the entire time, I would say he lacks the locked in energy that Vasilevsky gives off. From the moment Vasilevsky gets into his crease in the playoffs, and especially in the elimination games that we watched, it's locked in from the first. He's watching the game at the other end of the ice when Tampa is pushing the zone for 2.5, 3 minutes. And when it comes back to him, he's still in the same position. It's very robotic. That's what Tampa, you guys just play your same robotic style, and you know that you're going to be in the right spots. And then all of a sudden a stretch pass opens up in the middle of the ice and nobody can catch up to Braden Point, and he puts it over backhand on the goaltender. And you're like looking up what happened. So I totally see the system and everything like that. And I do think the defense is a little bit underrated, especially outside of the people who watch the Avalanche game in and game out. Especially from the forwards, and in this playoff run, I'd say the forwards have been the best part of the defense. You have Cale Makar and Devon Taves, who are playing big in front of the net. I think Eric Johnson is playing like a guy who's been in the league for 15 years and never sniffed a Stanley Cup, and he's looking at one dead in the face, 4 wins away from him now, so he's playing out of his mind. The one issue there would be losing Sam Girard to St. Louis, and that was a terrible blow. But then you got a guy like Bo Byram stepping up. He just turned 21, and arguably he was the 3rd best defenseman in our last 2 series, possibly 2nd best behind Cale Makar. So there's a little bit of I think, not bias, but just lack of information on both sides, because people could look at you guys and say, well, Steven Stamkos was injured for forever, and is he really still playing at that high of a level? Kucherov sometimes goes cold. He wasn't himself in the first couple of games of the playoffs. So there's things on both sides that you can nitpick. What we can't nitpick is that this is a hell of a matchup, and I think that we're in for knockdown, drag out games. I don't think that we're going to get a blowout on either side. And I know that the tab on the Avalanche is that they're probably going to give up mentally. That's what happened last year against Las Vegas. I think this team is, for anything that they do in this series, they are not going to go ahead and just give in and let Tampa Bay bully them. I think they want to prove at least that they're going to stand up to the biggest dog in the yard. And if it's not our time, I guess it won't be our time, and we'll go back to the drawing board. I think that's what the Avalanche have to bring to this series, is that they're trying to start a legacy. I think Cale Makar put out that quote today. You guys are trying to build a dynasty or cement a dynasty, and we're trying to build a legacy. And
start the legacy, yeah.
Well, and something
go ahead.
Something we have said during this postseason run, something from Ric Flair. I mean, in order to be the man, you got to beat the man. In order to be the champ, you got to beat the champ. And it's great that the Lightning have made it this far, and every team has came up and said, Tampa's the one. They're the back-to-back defending champions. We got to beat them. Mm-hmm. So I think going into this series, that's what it's going to be. Is Colorado's looking to dethrone, and then we have people like McDonough, who I think is underrated in a lot of markets, and then you're going to have Maroon, who. You guys know a little bit about Maroon down there, over there in Colorado from his St. Louis times. Yeah. And then Corey Perry. These guys want to win that cup together, and it's going to be Will versus Will, and who has the bigger will there.
Well, I will say right now, out of every team that the Lightning have played in the postseason the last 3 years, this is going to be the most mentally tough team that the Lightning will play. I'm going to say that right now. There's a famous quote, well, not famous, but it was a big quote from the series against Dallas on the Quest for the Cup on ESPN, where Cooper's in the locker room, and he's saying at one point, you're going to make this other team, they're going to decide to quit. You're going to make them choose to lose. Mm-hmm. And I've used that quote quite frequently in the last 2 years, and including through this run, because that's exactly the way the Lightning play hockey. I would say that of all those teams, I completely agree. This is the first team that we're facing that I don't know if that moniker is going to hold true, if that idiom and that saying is going to hold true. I don't know if the Lightning are going to be able to grind the Avalanche into a submission, if you will. That's the one thing I'll say about this Avalanche team, is that they match up well. I mean, I still am 100% biased. I mean, I can move real quick. Can't quite see it. I got my 77 sweater on the chair behind me. Right. I got my McDonough sweater that's signed by Chernak. I love the Lightning defense. I'm a huge guy, and I'm still not sold on Makar being a complete NHL defenseman. I still think the fact that he seems to carry this team offensively more than defensively. To me, as an old school guy, I would still take Hedman 10 times out of 10 because he focuses from his blue line forward. And I
wouldn't mind the Swedish giant patrolling my blue line either. That would be pretty nice.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And of course he has the benefit of already being in this league for a decade. You know what I mean? Makar does not. And I think Makar has the ability to maybe mature. And especially if the forward group that you have comes into their own, and he doesn't have to be such an offensive catalyst. Yes, he has the ability to do it. I think Victor Hedman honestly could easily be as offensively dominating as Makar is if he had to be. But the thing is that he's in a system where he doesn't have to be, and that makes him even better on the back end. And it really, when it needs to be, makes his offense even better, right? And so then, but I will say though, Makar is phenomenal. There's no doubting the amount of talent and skill and creativity and ability that guy has and what he brings to your team. I've been a fan of Nathan McKinnon since day one. Gabe Landeskog, I love that guy too. The grit, the guys in your locker room are the kind of guys that I would love in the locker room for our team. You know what I mean?
Those two guys that you just mentioned were there during the 48-point season.
Right, exactly. Right. And I remember that. And that's what I was saying coming on the show, is that I still probably follow the Avalanche more than maybe one of our friends that comes on the show a lot, with Shooter and I, older friend of ours. He's from the Utah area, grew up there. He's a straight Avalanche fan. He still isn't a Lightning fan. He puts the Avs first still. Yeah. So I'm still aware of your team. I still watch your team probably more than anybody in our market does, and probably more than anybody in your market watches our team. So
yeah,
I have a lot of respect for what you guys have been going through. You're right. Your coach, I mean, he's awesome. He's basically a mirror image of what Cooper's done and the way he's come in and changed the culture here and had to make sure he had ownership behind him. And, you know, I don't know what's going on with you guys' TV deal. You're obviously a little salty about I don't know what's going on with that, but I mean, at least it seems like they're putting in the money into their roster and, you know, building this team the right way. And I never thought I would see a situation where Kadri can come in and be a positive influence on a team. You know what I mean? And you know, I'll be honest. I watched a lot of the Western Conference Final. I heard about the Kadri Bennington incident before I saw it, and I'm not gonna lie. My first reaction was, well, that piece of shit. Of course, he took out the goalie. And then I go back and look at it, and that's a hockey play, man. It was a straight hockey play. I don't feel anything like he was, you know, his reputation was probably, like a lot of people said, you heard his name and you immediately assumed he was guilty, and then so it wasn't like that. So and it's kind of like Corey Perry with us, you know, he's the worm, and like he doesn't do half the shit on the Lightning that he was doing the last 2 seasons when we saw him with Dallas and Montreal. He doesn't do half of the dumb stuff. So I have a question for you. I was watching the Hot Garbage guy today break down this series, and he used the word goon in reference to our team a lot, to the point where I was like, dude, do you know playoff hockey, or are you just kind of being like salty about a physical playoff team? Like, do you look at the Lightning as a goonish playoff team? Like, they take cheap shots behind the play, and the refs look the other way a lot of time at what they do?
No, I mean, I don't think when they do commit a penalty, they commit a penalty, but it's not, there's no Trubas throwing elbows trying to decapitate people at the blue line. That's actually, I hadn't heard that before. When you guys were playing the Stars, I said it, like, the Dallas Stars were the biggest goon team that season. That was why they got it as far in the bubble as they did, because they just took out the best players on every other team. And similar to the year before, I hated San Jose and Dallas the most for like a 2-year span. And I thought the same thing. No, I've not seen anything. And I've watched a lot of playoff hockey from Tampa Bay. I haven't seen anything to say that they're goonish. That's why I have a lot of respect for I'm trolling your fans a little bit, or the people who reply to your Twitter, but I'm not doing it like mean spirited. It's fun. I have a lot of respect for what you guys did. I think, honestly, you said it. Stache said it when we started the show. It's similar situation. We weren't in a good situation for a long time. 2016 rolls around, and we end up beating Calgary, who's the 1 seed at the time, and that was when things really started to take off. And Joe Sakic is similar to, I think, Brisebois, where he's done the right things and put his team in the right situations. And I mean, even this season, just with the additions that they made at the trade deadline, and those additions paying off as much as they are, it's eerily similar on both sides. And this is why everybody's been thinking this matchup's coming for a long time.
Well, Landsegal, Grace Steinen, just like Stamkos did for us.
Yeah.
You know, they're very comparable. I actually think Colorado's more seems like our 2015 team when we went against Chicago in the Stanley Cup Finals with Bishop in the net and Vasi behind him. I think this Colorado team looks very similar to them, where you have that fast young gun and the blue line that likes to shoot a lot, and is still kind of the young ones. And then you got these old people in the Tampa Bay Lightning who are going to try to teach them this series, and then hopefully we win it, and next year you guys can play again.
Well, that's what I was thinking too, Thomas, is, you know, has Colorado really had enough of the heartbreak to get them over the hump? Because, all right, you lost a couple years in the second round, Boo freaking who?
It wasn't just that's what Niko says too, and I tell him all the time. It's not just that they lost; it's how they lost in those series. The San Jose was a bad call. I think I still would say Landeskog was not on the ice at that point. It wasn't offside. I will die on that hill. But Dallas, they take the lead at the end of regulation. They give up the lead. They get the lead, or they get it tied at least and get into overtime. And then 2.5 minutes into overtime, I'm standing there screaming. Like I had to kick myself off of our podcast Twitter page. I was like in our early days, the 300 people following us were about to riot and report me and everything like that. And then Vegas last season, we were 6-0 in the playoffs up until that point. We got swept out after that. That's where it's not as I guess I don't know. You guys probably feel differently than I do. I say it's on the same level as you getting swept by an 8 seed, as the number 1 seed in the President's Trophy winner.
You're almost there, but our sad stories of the playoffs begin way before that. In 2015, two wins away from winning a Stanley Cup. Our goalie got injured. And then we bring in Big Cat.
That was when we were winning like 20 games on the season. That was when we were even further in poverty.
Yeah, but the year after that, we went to the Eastern Conference Finals. We're up 3-2, lost the final 2 games, didn't go back to the Stanley Cup Finals. The next year, we didn't make the playoffs. The next year, back to the Stanley Cup, or back to the Eastern Conference Finals, up 3-2 again, lost the series. Washington goes on to win it. The other team we lost in the Eastern Conference Final, being up 3-2, Pittsburgh goes on to win it. The next year was the year we had the best regular season ever, tied with the Detroit Red Wings of 1960s, if that counts. And then
it doesn't count.
One thing we can agree on: nothing about the Red Wings counts, except for when Steve Yzerman was in town.
Yzerman was here, yeah.
Well, so then after that 3 years, I guess you could say 4 years of heartbreak, because 1 year we did not make the playoffs. That's when we got swept, and then it was the next year that the team never really looked back. And your motivation is, all right, similar to ours, like, man, this hurts to lose. Like, we're almost there. We've got the team. We've got everything we need to get over the hump. How are you going to put that against the motivation for this main group of guys who's playing to win 3 straight, which is probably never going to happen again, if we're being honest. Probably never going to happen again.
Some say it shouldn't have happened in the first place, but carry on.
It did.
It did. The Lightning voted for it to never happen in the first place, as a matter of fact.
I put that out there as well last season when I was carrying your guys' flag. I said, you guys voted, and Chicago said no, and that was also when Chicago was doing a whole bunch of other bad shit.
Chicago bet us in 15 by doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. That's exactly how we lost, because you know what?
And I was calling for the Avalanche to use it this year when Landeskog went hurt.
Tyler Johnson got hurt, and he went down, and we didn't really have anyone on the roster of the depth at that point that could replace him at that moment, because he was our Braden Point at that time. Tyler Johnson was our Braden Point. That triplet line was insane at that point. And if he didn't, which by the way, I thought was a shady slash that hurt him. It was a really shady play when he got slashed and injured his wrist. But they were able to reload because their injuries happened in the regular season, and then they were able to use LTIR, overloaded, came back, and in the postseason they were fucking stacked. Like I think they were way more stacked than the Lightning team was last year, for sure. Like personally, I really think they were. But whatever. That's to me that this and shooters talk about 2015. This goes back to 2011 for Steven Stamkos, right? We talk about the captain. We talk about the guy that this year is leading the way, which I said before the playoffs. Steven Stamkos, Conn Smythe winner. That was my prediction. That was my bold prediction. Steven Stamkos, Conn Smythe winner. And right now, if he holds true playing the way he is, and they pull out and they beat you guys here, I believe Steven Stamkos will be the Conn Smythe winner, unless Vasi just completely plays his ass off.
Yeah, Vasi could be the only other one, unless
unless he gives up like 3 goals and the Lightning sweep, and he gives up like 3 goals, honestly, which that's not happening. And I think the 5 goals or 5 games is a bold prediction, but I have my reasons. We can get into it later. But I'm just saying right now, like, it started in 2011 for Steven Stamkos. They almost got there. Lost in the ECF, and then they had tumultuous times. They had that's when the Marty St. Louis thing happened. Like, You guys haven't gone through something like that. Like MSL was the heart and soul of our franchise, and then the heartbreak because of the scandal that came out between him and Iserman and the Olympics, and then his wife, and then personal things, and then the franchise, and then suddenly we do a captain for captain swap with all teams. The Rangers, like if there's a team, like you guys as Avalanche fans hate the Red Wings. As a Tampa fan, we hate all things New York, dude, especially things that have to do with Yankees and Rangers and Giants here in Tampa. You know, the Long Islanders and those guys, they're okay, whatever. They're a different breed. If you're a Yankees fan, if you're a Rangers fan, if you're a Giants fan, you could fuck off down here in Tampa. You know what I mean? And so to have that swap and him go there, but look what happened. We got Ryan McDonough, and that guy helped come in. And that guy's never missed the playoffs, by the way. Let's give a shout out to Mr. 27. I'm wearing his sweater right now. In his entire career, he's never missed the playoffs. Yeah. So that goes back to 2011, I think, for some guys on this team and beyond, right? Like he was with the Rangers making the playoffs. They were supposed to be something, and they blew it all up and shipped him out of town. He was a prodigal son that came down here and found a beautiful life in Tampa. You know, I mean, these guys all live within a few houses of it. Most of these guys all live on the Davis Island, right there in the river, right across. It's like a 15-minute bike ride, 5-minute car ride to the arena. And if you aren't living there with your family, you're living somewhere within proximity of the arena. These guys all live with each other. They hang out together all the time. Like they become a family. And ever since, you know, Stamkos and McDonough, Hedman came in, they went through the trials and tribulations. 2015 rolls around. Some of those guys from the Crunch that was super successful, they come up with John Cooper. He brings a whole new philosophy, a whole new style, and they become a family. And I think that when it really comes down to this series, what we're going to see is the intangibles are what's going to make the difference.
Who's a better team? Who works better as a team together?
Right. Team unity, team hockey. That's what's going to make the difference.
I don't think that there's going to be a player that takes over the entire thing, unless it's Vasilevsky.
No, there's not. Right. Exactly. That's
or Kemper. Really, I mean, I guess Kemper. Well, if Kemper, right. I'm knocking on wood because I don't want to jinx myself. But if Kemper does have an Eddie Balfour moment in him, or something like that,
I will say that you're not wrong about that. Well, but that's what it comes down to me. Go ahead, sure.
It can kind of go two ways. You know, the Lightning have this history of making okay goalies look really great, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't really happen too often in the playoffs. More often in the playoffs, if you have one of these 1-2 situations or even 1-2-3 situations, we usually run that first goalie out, and then the second goalie comes in, and then they're crying for the first goalie again not long afterward. So I think that's one of the things that the Avalanche need to kind of establish sooner than later is who's the goalie, because I don't think these goalies
and don't get knee jerk. But Bednar has to not get knee jerk with his goalie decisions.
Don't pull a Gerard Gerlach. Don't make a decision when you're hungover at 3 a.m. after crying in your beer, losing a game. No, this is it's Darcy Kemper's net, and I don't disagree with
for how long.
I think unless he's injured, unless the eye flares up, it's got to be his. You can't pull him at any point.
I was gonna say you won't see Coop pull Vasi no matter what. You can go ahead and score 10 on Vasi in a game.
We saw it in the first series. We saw it in the Toronto series. Like any other goalie gets pulled in that Toronto series, man. Shesterkin got pulled in his first series against the Penguins, and he should have. Vasi still played every single minute of the playoffs for the last 3 seasons.
Darcy didn't get
going to happen. So
Darcy didn't get pulled for performance. Darcy got pulled because he couldn't see. He was injured. Exactly. So that's where I think
he only lost it. Right. That's why. Yeah.
That's why there's not as much of a goaltender controversy. And Francouz is a better backup than most that you'll see around the league. I think he starts in a market like Columbus or a smaller team, Winnipeg maybe, but he's not the starting goaltender on this team. This team is too good. It's like putting a Honda Civic engine in a Ferrari. It makes no sense, and all it's going to do is just slow you down. So Kemper's the number one.
But you talk about that the Colorado fan base, the Avalanche fan base, after those last couple wins with Francois in the net, if Kemper comes back and gives up 4 goals in game 1, and you guys lose 4-1, because you guys are going to have, hopefully, for the Lightning's sake, some of that rust, like we had the 9-day rust against New York. So hopefully you get some rust, which is why I picked 5 games, because I think we win game 1, lose game 2, and win the rest of the 3. And it makes my pockets cheaper because less home games. But
Jesus, tickets in this game series, right?
Yeah. So
it's ridiculous here too.
Yeah. So say we win that first game 4-1. Are those average Avalanche fans, those newcomers, Johnny come latelys, going to be like, oh, he's still injured, he's not doing great, look what Francois did against Edmonton?
I mean, it would make sense, except for the fact that game 4 against Edmonton was so bad, and Francouz proved in that series why he wasn't the starter going into the playoffs. It was soft goal after soft goal, and it was bad. Go ahead.
We had that last year with Florida, with Bobrovsky and Knight, where the Panther fans, you don't see any Panther fans the whole season, and then it sells out for the playoffs, and all of a sudden everybody knows what they should be doing down there in goal. And, and we started having some trolls on our podcast come in and be like, oh, you guys can't beat Knight, you guys will beat Bobrovsky. And then what did we do to close out the series? We beat Knight. Yeah. So, yeah, and is Avalanche going to have those Johnny come latelys?
That's the thing about Bednar, is Bednar doesn't give in to any kind of outside pressure. I think Bednar and Sakic work so well together, and they have a lockstep on what they're doing. There's been times where people have been calling for big moves, big changes, moving around the lines, and he does it when he feels like it's the right thing. And if he doesn't feel like it's the right thing, and I don't think he will, I think he understands if you're going to get a Darcy Kemper performance that's going to win you the series, you've got to give him all of the leash. He's just got the net. You give him the keys to the car, and if he crashes, he crashes. But that's going to be the best coaching decision. That's what's going to give the other guys in the dressing room confidence, because they know this guy is our guy, and we're going to have to stand up for him. And that's where we're going to start seeing the team aspect again. And when these two teams play as a unit, it's flawless hockey, and there's a long period of time where neither team is getting a very good shot on goal chance. That's one thing that I noticed from the games, and game 1 went to the shootout, and it was a 6-round shootout, because that's how many studs these two teams have on the ice. And
you were there.
It was. You guys probably should have won it. There's a couple lucky breaks for us in that shootout. But no, that's why I think this series is so intriguing, and that's why I just hope for the best series of the playoffs so far. It goes 7 games. It's a knockdown, drag out, kind of like the 0-1 Cup, where we end up beating New Jersey at home, and it would be awesome to see the boys lift the cup on home ice. But other than that, I'm very nervous about the series.
Yeah, no, we're really happy about the matchup. Like, I think almost, I don't want to speak for the other guys, but like we kind of considered the Stanley Cup last year, the Eastern Conference Finals versus the Islanders, because Montreal making it was
Montreal didn't scare you guys.
It was kind of a joke. I don't know if you watched Stanley Cup Finals. It was kind of a joke. Probably could have swept them, joke. But I think they wanted to win at home, so they let the.
You guys didn't want to win in the empty arena for 2 years in a row. No, I get it.
We lost in overtime and came back home and won in game 5 pretty easily. But even before that, it was the COVID Cup, like everyone, and then over the cap. Like, what are you going to say if we beat the Colorado Avalanche? I think that's a challenge for this team. I think even the team knows that. And I think finally, when we win this round, they can't say, you can't really say anything about this run. What are you going to say? And you've seen the team do it different ways. You want to go up 2-0? Go ahead. You want to push it to elimination? Go ahead. You want to sweep? Here you go. That's why I just have a tough time trying to figure out, how are you going to beat the Lightning? You're going to outscore them? I think that's your best chance, but guess who we have in net? It ain't going to work for 4 games. And guess you want to play those close games? Guess who we have in net? And, you talking about your 3rd best defender. Our 3rd best is Ryan McDonough. That's a pretty damn good 3rd best defenseman. Mm-hmm. And then, you want to talk about bullying the team? We got bullied by Columbus, and that will never happen again. Our GM made sure of it. So you want to try to bully us. You want to try to outscore us. You want to try to have a goaltenders, duel with us. Good luck. Like the better team's going to win. And if Colorado pulls it off, kudos to them. They're the team to beat.
I agree 100%. That's exactly in lockstep. There's no excuse. And it's the perfect scenario for both teams, because if the Rangers would have won it and then we would have beat the Rangers for the cup, there would have been the asterisk like we didn't have to. Were the Rangers really the best team in the Eastern Conference Finals? You'd like to think that if they beat the Lightning, yeah, but the way that series started, it looked like the Lightning just weren't going to show up until they got their legs back underneath them and the rust wore off. So there's no excuses, no excuse anybody can put on this run for either side. And I think that's why I'm willing to break bread with the enemy the day before the game and come on your guys' show a little bit later as people are listening or watching this on our feed. I'll be on your guys' show, but you guys all gave out your predictions one more time. Just real quick, we'll start with Tom and then go around to Shooter and Stache. Predictions for the series, and go ahead and piss off our crowd before we send everybody home.
I say Tampa in 5, I say tomorrow, Braden Point steps out on that ice. The Lightning get a little boost of energy. Colorado's had that. Was it 10 days? What will it be for them? 10
it's 10, maybe going on 11, 10 or 11.
Yeah. And then they're gonna have that little rust that Tampa had. And just one thing to your point there about how if the Rangers would have won, the same thing for Tampa fans. Had the Rangers won, it would have been, see, we told you it was the Mickey Mouse. It was the COVID Cup. Well, you guys couldn't do it in a full regular season. You guys couldn't do this against the whole NHL team. So I think it was important. And we had talked about, I think Shooter said something earlier, how we were saying we kind of at the beginning was like, well, if we don't go that far this year, then fine. But then we think that the Lightning, like midway through Rangers or maybe through Florida, was like, you know what? Let's win this whole damn thing and go ahead and do it. And I think one other bonus we have over the Avalanche is John Cooper. That man he will mess up. Well, he will change the lineup just to piss off Lightning fans, I think. Just so everybody in the Tampa Bay area can say, what the hell is he doing?
Fire Coop.
Yeah. I mean, every year we go through the fire Coop phase and then we win Stanley Cups. And it's like, are we firing him now? That's always one of the first posts the last 2 years when we won the Stanley Cup. Yeah. And so, and that's the mind games that I think Coop has over a lot of different coaches, is that he's big on the analytics, and we've seen that in sports a lot lately. And we tried that 11-7 for the first 2 games in Toronto, in New York. And New York didn't go well. 12-6 the rest of the way, and we never blinked again.
All right, Shooter, go ahead. What's your series prediction, and give us your reasoning behind it?
I give Colorado a lot more credit than these guys do. I think heavyweight matchup. We talked about the motivations. You guys are motivated to, start to
not be embarrassed.
Define. Well, no. I mean, you guys have been on the doorstep. Maybe not right on the doorstep in the playoffs. Some early exits, but that has motivated this team to get over that hump. But I just don't see how that stops the Lightning from doing what they're trying to do, which is something that hasn't been done in 4 years. Like the talk about the ultimate motivation. And I think that's what it comes down to. And I think it happens in 7 games. And I think we're in for a pretty fun 2 weeks here. I'll be watching for the Lightning have won the last 11 playoff series. And in each one of those series, we have almost pinpointed a game and a moment in that game where the other team has given up. And that's what I'll be looking for, because if Colorado wants a chance, I don't think they can do this back and forth goalie thing. So I'm glad you said they're not going to do that. But they can't give up like 11 other teams have done in the past 3 years now.
Don't let the Lightning beat you. Is it harder to make history, or is it harder to stop history? I guess we're going to find out over the next, hopefully, 6 or 7 games, and we'll see who comes out on top. Stache, what do you got?
my take on this is 5 games because of the layoff. Honestly, I just, and it's not that I don't have respect for the Avalanche. It's not that I don't think they're a great team. They're not capable of winning the series overall. If this was 2 teams that hadn't won in recent years finally matching up, I think if things were all even, I think probably the Avalanche win this in 5, honestly. But the intangibles that we've been talking about, at this point, I think the Lightning are just on such a roll. Whereas you saw the Rangers were on a roll going into the Lightning series, but the difference was mentality, experience, and really truly belief in themselves. Like, as much as they had swagger, I still don't think they ever believed they could beat the Lightning. I don't. Now, do I believe the Avalanche believe they could beat the Lightning? Yes. They are the team, like I said, the toughest team, the most mentally strong team the Lightning will face in this entire run. That being said, I still think the rust is a factor in game 1, which gives the Lightning a split there in Colorado to start the series. But then when you come back to Tampa, I think teams that haven't played playoff hockey here are shocked when they get to this arena and when they see this fan base and this not a hockey town team and the way that we show up. I think teams are genuinely shocked when they come and see 19,000. You talked about your sellout record. Well, we're really close to catching up to that, brother. We're close to 300 right now, consecutive. So we're right there. And we standing room only. We do it all. 19,600 some odd fans in that building. And we talked about it too. That's going to be the most expensive ticket in the history of Stanley Cup Finals. 25% more than a few years ago when Vegas made it in their very first year. And, you know, those were crazy expensive because that's Vegas. That's people in Vegas being like, I'll pay anything to go to this first time. You know, we're 25% more expensive between the 2 teams here. So what I really think it comes down to is just the experience. It's a split them here in Colorado, come back to Tampa, the Lightning win the 2, and then it's an elimination game. And that's what it comes down to. Game 5 ends up being an elimination game, and that's when Vasi goes and maybe steals the Conn Smythe from Steve Stamkos.
Here's a word of wisdom for your fans, though. Don't taunt the Lightning.
Do not give them poster board material.
No, anybody that has started chanting, we want Tampa, Igor's better. When they start those taunting chants, some reason it wakes up the Lightning and they don't look back after that. But what's your prediction, Jimmy? You're on mute.
You think I'd be better on it as the host of my own show? I'm trying to,
Clearly, you haven't watched our show enough. Well, this is super tame.
The live element would be different.
We're on our best behavior because we respect you, and we really appreciate you bringing us on your show in enemy territory. So we've been on our best behavior. Tomorrow night after the game, you might see a little bit of a different. But yeah, come on, man, bring it, lay it on us. What's your prediction?
Avs in 7. I think Avs in 7 because you got to do everything that you can to keep home ice. We learned that you've learned that in your past Stanley Cup experience, and you have to keep that serial killer type drive, focus, look in your eye. You can't ever think that this series is over. You can't ever think that a game is over. The Tampa Bay Lightning are never out of anything at any point in any time, and they're going to be the most difficult team that you've ever tried to eliminate from the playoffs with this core group of guys. And I think that they're aware of that. They've given the Tampa Bay Lightning nothing but respect in their interviews, which is what you'd expect, but it's a little bit different. It's not the stock answers. They understand the moment just as much as everybody else did. They wanted to play Tampa in the Stanley Cup final, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. It wasn't in the cocky way that Florida did. It wasn't in the cocky way that New York did. This was just the way that it had to be. A lot of our fan base that knows is aware, like, this is the way that it had to be for the Colorado Avalanche. This is the way that the Broncos had to win their last Super Bowl. Peyton Manning had to suck. You had to just rely on your defense, and you somehow made it and took care of business when you finally got there. And you're going to have to be able to do that against a team that a lot of people, and rightly so, think that they're going to have the edge over you. And it comes down to the experience factor. It comes down to having been there before. And until you prove otherwise, you're going to be looked at as just not being able to get over that hump. So if they're going to get over that hump, they're going to have to do it themselves.
I think our teams have so much similarities, and something else that ties our teams together. And we've actually got to interview him, Chris Dingman, who has won a Stanley Cup with both of our teams. So I've been waiting to see who he's predicting in this, because when we talked to him, he was very well on both teams, wanted both teams to get here. So now I'd love to see who he wants to see win. I know, I think we figured out next year is going to be the anniversary of his cup here in Tampa. And we wanted to start a little movement to get him to come back, or following year. And so what about Dingman for you guys? Is he a national treasure there like he is here?
I mean, everybody that was on a Stanley Cup winning team is, but there's the main guys were the Sakic's, the Forsbergs, the Lemieux, especially because Lemieux was kind of the first piece that brought us a little bit of notoriety after they moved.
He was your Maroon, kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, and just being those guys.
I mean, a way better player, but like that, he brought that mojo to you guys.
I feel you guys have the intangibles on Tampa, like that Killorn line. When it's Killorn, Maroon, and whoever else they put out there, like Palat, it's a little bit different, and people learn that the hard way. No, I think I was thinking you were going to say Cal Foote, because we were talking about how Adam Foote is moving back to Colorado, and he was on, I think, in the Western Conference Finals for the TNT broadcast, and then they talk about his son playing defenseman for the Lightning. It's like, I know that he's your kid, I know that he's blood, but come on, you won a cup here, and it was pretty nice.
Benched. He was benched last series. So.
Yeah. As soon as they went back to 12-6, he was the odd man out defensively. But that's not long. I mean, that kid's playing fantastic hockey. When he had to be on the ice for this team, he was great. When Ruta was injured, we call him Rutu actually on our show to make fun of the NBC sports broadcast team. They always called him Rutu, so we are relentless on that. But when Ruta was injured, he played really good minutes for this team early on, especially in that Toronto series. So he's definitely the future of our blue line. So you're absolutely right. That's another kind of player that ties our two franchises together. So, but yeah, man, I just wanted to say thanks for inviting us on and having us come on, man. My folks live in Aurora. Like I said, my aunt lives out there too. My aunt's the director for Cherry Creek Schools Transportation Department. Like, my family's deep in roots in Denver for sure, man. I'm out there at least once a year. I was at Red Rocks last year to see 311 for my Mecca trip. So yeah, like it's a pure joy for me to see this this matchup finally happen. And I'm saying 5 just because of the analytics of it. I want a 7-game series. I want it to go to the end. I know, but I don't think my heart can handle it. I'm getting old. I don't think I can handle that kind of stress. But
I'm too fat to handle that.
Yeah, man. But yeah, like I said, it's a pleasure to be on your show, and it's a pleasure to be playing your team. Finally, a team I feel a caliber out of the Western Conference, worthy of trying to win the Stanley Cup. It's been a while. I mean, St. Louis was a good team, and I think they deserved it, but like, you guys definitely deserve this opportunity, and I'm excited to see what happens over this upcoming series, man. Starting tomorrow night.
If you didn't piss off the fans, you did now, because you said the buzzword in the blue notes. But
sorry, guys.
No, I appreciate you guys coming on.
Well, you're gonna be super happy when Patty Maroon comes back, then, right? Mr. 14 series in a row, Mr. Maroon.
It's okay. He actually came out on the Pat McAfee show and said he hates Stan Kroenke too, because he moved the Rams from St. Louis to Los Angeles. So it sucks. I have a soft spot in my heart for Pat Maroon now, and I have to deal with that.
Listen, so do we. So do we. And same with Corey Perry. Like I said, I started this Facebook group, and when there was the rumors that Corey Perry was coming here, I mean, we all saw it, and people were like, no, anywhere but here. He's like Marchand. He's like,
I hated him too. That's who Patrick Waugh pushed the glass over on.
Yeah. I mean, so, and then Perry becomes a Tampa Bay Lightning, and all of a sudden he starts scoring, and then it's Corey, and oh my God, what a great pickup, and we love him, and we have guys here that we love to hate, but now we just love to love, and Corey Perry, Pat Maroon. is two of those players. Ryan McDonough, when he was captain for the Rangers, someone we didn't like. Now we benefited from them, and then just other players that have came and gone through this system. But the fact that Julian Breezeball and Cooper have been able to just replace and replenish and still not hurt that locker room, as we tend to think might happen with the loss of, we lost the whole third line of Gaudreau, Coleman, and Yanni Gourde. The only one that did make the playoffs was Yanni Gourde, and that's because it was Seattle. I mean, you look at the other two, they were both in the playoffs and expected to do pretty good. Gaudreau, was in the last series against us. So
Coleman got screwed by the referees.
Right. I mean,
that was a goal. Sorry.
That series ends in 6 if it counts.
Hey, I'm not saying that it's a different outcome. I'm just saying, come on, people talk shit about the refereeing in our series. There was some really questionable refereeing in the Western Conference series early on.
That's all I've been hearing is whining about the referees between Edmonton and St. Louis. That's basically the song of my people for the last few weeks.
So
Stache, I appreciate you coming on as well. It's been a ton of fun having you guys all. Hopefully you guys take it easy on me later on tonight as people are listening to this when I'm on after game 1. Hopefully it's a good game and I'm not too upset about how the Avalanche look in their Stanley Cup playoff reemergence, or Stanley Cup final reemergence. But be sure, follow these guys at We the Thunder on Twitter. Check out their shows after every single postseason game for the Tampa Bay Lightning and every week elsewhere, all things Bolts. If you're a fan of Tampa Bay, moving out there, any kind of thing, going on vacation, because why not? It's Florida, it's hot, there's nice weather. Be sure to check out those guys and be sure to follow them wherever you can. And we really appreciate you guys coming on, and it was great chatting with you. And hopefully we see you on the other side of this thing in one piece and whole and coming off of a great playoff series. But it was great to have you guys on, and we'll see everybody on Friday for our follow-up episode at the end of the week. So this has been Far End of the Bench. There you go. Far End of the Bench podcast. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you guys next time.